Hello everyone, welcome to a new video. Today I'm going to speak about attitude. Basically, attitude it refers to a set of emotions, beliefs and behaviors towards a particular object, person, thing or event. Attitudes are often the result of experience or upbringing, and they can have a powerful influence over different behaviors. Attitude consists of a frame of thought in a consequential manner, in a sequential stream of presentation and thought formation. It also includes different beliefs, faiths and recognitions of emotional components. Different definitions of attitudes defines in different ways, but it mainly limits towards a particular agreement of evaluative feature in nature of regarding thoughts and as an attitude object. It consists of different components. Those components are in a stream of tendency to act in a particular way with regard to the attitude object. The thought component is referred to as the cognitive aspect. The emotional component is called as the affective aspect, and the behavioral component is called as the cognitive aspect. All these three components together, it combines to form as the ABC components, or the affective, behavioral and the cognitive components of the attitude. It is quite to be noted that attitude themselves are not behaviors, but they represent a tendency to behave or act in a particular manner or in certain ways. They are a part of cognition along with an emotional component, and they cannot be observed from outside. In all cases, we will find two components which come across attitude. The first is called the belief, and the second is called as the values. Now, what is the belief is all about? Basically, beliefs refers to the cognitive components of attitudes and from the grounds on which attitudes stand, such as belief in God, etc. Believe in a universal truth of law, etc. or believe in democracy, etc. as a political ideology, or so cultural backgrounds, or etc. And secondly, we have as the values, which are attitudes or beliefs that contain a should or ought aspect, such as moral values, ethical values, etc. One example of a value is that the idea that one should work hard, is that, or that one should always be honest, etc. because honesty is the best policy. So that values and ethical values comes across towards formation of an attitude, beliefs and values. Values are formed when a particular belief or attitude becomes an inseparable part of the presence of the person's outlook or towards in life. And consequently, values are difficult to be in change or to come in a change in the life. In addition to these beliefs and values in place of attitudes, we have different significant features of attitudes. The first is called as the valence. The second is called as the extremeness. Third is complexity or the simplicity. And the fourth is called as the centrality. Number one, the valence. Basically, it is the positivity or the negativity. That means attitude is forming how much positive, or it is forming how much negative in it from its contents towards the individual. So that includes the valence. Valence is basically the towards the attitude object. Suppose an attitude towards a research has to be expressed on a 5-point scale, then how would we consider it? We will consider in different rating scales, like number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Number 1 like very bad, number 2 bad, number 3 neutral or neither good nor bad, number 4 good, or number 5 very good. So based upon those rating scales, we form the valence, that how positive the attitude formation is taking out or how negative it could go. So that contains the valence of attitude. Number 2 is called as the extremeness. Now basically, see, it's apart from valence, extremeness is of an attitude indicates how positive or negative an attitude is. The rating of 1 is stated as a rating of 5 only in the opposite directions. Rating of 2 and 4, etc. are less extreme than a rating of 1 and 5, because it reconsiders towards a positive attitude of 5 very good or 1 is low good. That's why. So it contains the extremeness of the attitude in the previous example. Next we have number 3, the simplicity or complexity. It is also called as the multiplexity. That means an formation of an attitude is how much it is simple in nature or how much it is complex in nature could be terminated. An attitude system is said to be simple if it contains only one or few attitudes, and a complex if it is consists of many attitudes in it. So that contains the elements of health, elements of achievement of health, elements of happiness, elements of different confused states of 3 components of the ABC component. So it contains a lot of different elements apart from the simple one. So that is been considered as complex attitudes. And number 4, we have the centrality. Basically, centrality, it includes if one attitude controls or holds through or relates with another attitude. If one attitude is affecting directly in a proportional manner to the other attitude, and it's significantly having an impact on it, it's controlling it, and it's controlling the behavior as well. So that is under centrality. That comes under basically centrality. So these are the basic 4 features of an attitude. Formation of an attitude, how does it takes place? We have different steps in it. The first step is called as the attitudes takes place or gets formed through association. Now what does this mean? When a person is associated with a particular task, or it is assigned with a particular task, or it is formed or we have an association with a particular organization or event or such kind of things, the person feels responsible towards it, the person feels reactable towards it, the person feels accountable towards it. So in the long run he have an basic interest upon the particular activity if he or she in which the person is getting involved in. So accordingly the person gets involved and the person gets associated with it, and then more likely in the long run the person gets interest in it, and the attitudes thus creates towards a change within the individual. So this is how attitude takes place through association. In basic point is called attitudes takes place towards a change through 2 things. The first is called as the reward, and the second is called as the punishment. The fear of punishment and the greed for reward. And this means a person basically gets associated towards a particular attitude change in order to for achievement of that reward. He will fulfill the criteria, he will fulfill the parameters set for it, and such that the reward does not be taken away from the person in place of a punishment, or in case of a punishment, or in any such situation like a punishment. The person will always have the fear such that the attitude doesn't get loosened off. So this is how the change of attitude takes place towards from reward and punishment. Next we have the change of attitude through modeling. Now modeling means observing others, learning through observation of others. We learn towards a particular formation of an attitude. We get towards that attitude by observing others, by looking towards a role model, by selecting our role model, by choosing our role model. Why? Because the person from whom or to whom we choose as our role model, that person works in a different manner, that person works in a selective manner, which is very much likely and commonality, which have basic interest in it, which the individual finds interest in it. And likewise we have a formation of an attitude change towards observing that person, to observing that activity, observing the organization, observing the place, event, etc. So this is how learning through observation transforms towards attitude change. Next we have the change of an attitude which takes place through group and cultural norms. When you are associated with a group, the groups have norms in it. When you are associated with a culture, the culture has norms in it. Yes, so by those cultural depictions we get to know some kind of formation of attitude. We get to know some informations which transforms the individual towards the formation of an attitude. So this is how group association, cultural association also takes place towards formation of an attitude change. Next we have the change of an attitude takes place through learning, through exposure to new information or unknown informations in nature. Whenever we come across new informations, whenever we come across more informations, unknown informations or corrected informations, then we get towards a change in our attitude towards the perception, towards a particular event, place. It could be either place, it could be either person, event, activity, organization, etc. So likely we transform our change in the place of attitude. So this is how basically the change of attitude takes place when we come across towards a new information or learned information or unknown information. So acquiring of information takes place towards the formation of an attitude change. So we have different types of factors which influence the formation of an attitude. The first factor which comes and foremost factor which is very much important towards an individual is family. So how come family? Let's have a look. Basically in case of family, family is the first place from which the individual takes towards a attitude. The perceptions or perceives towards an attitude is through family. The person lives in the family with the longest duration of time, spends the longest duration of time along with the family members. Maybe the biological family or maybe the non-biological family, but it includes the formation of an attitude towards the first and foremost towards the family and its social environment, from whom the person gets information, from whom the person encounters different kind of relational attributes, and those relational attributes together turbines the individual towards forming a selective attitude within the individual. After family, we have the person shifts towards education. The person is allowed to move away from the house for a proper curriculum, for a proper education, and that education has been attained in school, colleges, universities, etc. So in those educational institutions, not only basically school, of any educational institutions, becomes the backbone of formation of an attitude towards the child, towards the individual, and which brings up and transforms the individual into the growth and development. After that, the person encounters towards different kinds of groups, which are basically called as reference groups. It doesn't limits towards only the peer group surrounding of the individual. It also extends the boundaries apart from it. It also includes different informational backgrounds from which the person encounters in his life, in his own life, and different reference groups together towards transforms and brings towards information of a change within the attitude. After reference groups, the person encounters towards different personal experiences within the individual's life, and now the person encounters towards different attitude changes, because the person has gained experience adequately and subsequently in his life till now. and now he utilizes those adequate informations, those adequate experiences to change and transform in upcoming good attitude, positive attitude towards his rest of his life, for himself and for the society, for the family, for the others, etc. In this current scenario, nowadays a new division of factor which has evolved, which is called as media influence or media related influences, which is coming up in the new era. And thus it has provided many kinds of different informational influence towards our viewers, towards our society, towards our individuals, towards different individuals. And individuals go along towards these relative influences through media and other electronic mediums, where the influence gets raised up towards the formation of an attitude. In every change in the attitude, there contains basically the concept of balance. This concept of balance is basically an evaluative step which must be maintained by every individual in every situations, and it basically defines that in every formation of an attitude it must be unconditionally and logically comfortable in every situation, and then and only the concept of balance will be maintained within the individual. The formation of an attitude, if not been maintained within this balance, then he may upbring or outward the formation of an attitude will outlet the individual, and he will be carried away with the formation of an attitude. He will not stick towards the base levels of the ideology, of the principles, of the vision for which the formation of an attitude was required in nature. The concept of cognitive dissonance, it was basically the concept defines that it emphasizes the cognitive component of nature. Here the basic idea is that the cognitive component of an attitude must be consonant in nature, that is the opposite of dissonant in nature. That is, they should be logically in line with each other. If an individual finds that two cognitions in an attitude are present or are dissonant in nature, then one of them will be changed in the direction of the consonance. And this is what basically is all about the cognitive dissonance. So one must maintain that the logical reason between two cognitive streams towards the formation of an attitude. Apart from that, we have another which is called as the two-step concept. Basically, it is the attitude change which takes place in the form of two steps. The first step is called as the target, and the second is called as the source. The first one, now what is this? Let us have a look on it. Basically, in the first step, the target of change that identifies with the source, and the target is the person whose attitude is to be changed, and secondly it is the source, is the person whose influence through which the change is to take place. So two things like target and the source, from to which the change is to be made, that is the target, and from which the change is been taking place, that is the source. Target and source. So these two things, it's very much important in case of formation of an attitude and towards an individual.